Can Pete Alonso hit better than 217? We have the answer to that and more on today's first base preview episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly, truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And guess what? If you do that, you might as well take a screenshot of your rating and review and join us over on the Subtext platform. Send us over that screenshot of your rating and review, and you'll have a chance to join our listener league that is going to be awesome. Play against Matt and I, learn the tips from the pros, and we'll be announcing the next winner for the next spot on February 22nd. So stay locked on for that. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit the little bell below. It subscribes to the channel and gives you notification every time we drop a new episode. And guys, real quick before we get into things, today's sponsor is FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. Whew. And all right, guys, that is a lot. We're doing our first base preview today. And Matt, my brother, why don't you take it off here? Well, who are we talking about? How are we breaking this down?
All right. So, for starters, we're just going to run through this ADP quick at this top half. Then, guys, we're going to target. And then, guys, we're totally avoiding at the position. We're going to give you a little breakdown, but tell you exactly how it's going. Don't mind the groaning. That's my, newborn just sitting over there. He loves to grunt. Like, he will not cut it at Planet Fitness. He's a grunter. And it's just about it. He's chilling, though. All right. So, let's break this down. I'm gonna pretty much break it down by my first two tiers, right? So you start off, we got Freddie Freeman, you got Matt Olson, you got Bryce Harper. Pretty much a lock at the position for me. Those are the three guys that I feel if I get one of those guys, I feel great. Generally, I see myself walking away with Matt Olson or Bryce Harper because I'm not walking away in the first round with a first baseman. It just doesn't feel great for my team construction. And quite honestly, I don't want to pass on that outfield at the top. Matt Olson, always a nice steal if I got I got a, what do you call it? I get a nice little, what do you call it? There we go. At the end of the draft, like I got 11, 12, 10, whatever. I always am able to just kind of scoop in Matt Olson, any pick after that, pretty much. And once Matt Olson's off the board, it's Bryce Harper City in the second round, no matter where I'm picking. I pretty much just lock up outfield and a first baseman. It's real nice. Harper's that go-to guy, average power, runs, ribbies, even chipping a couple stolen bases. Like Harper's the complete package for me for that. So I feel like he's a no-brainer in the second round. I don't really look at anybody else outside of those two, truthfully. Then I got my next tier, and that's the only other two I'm giving up. It's Vlad and Pete Alonso, and I actually got them flipped based off of versus ADP, where they have them flipped. Vlad, we're going to talk about a little bit later because he's either going to be in my target or avoid, so stick around for that. And Pete Alonso is a guy that I truthfully just like. If I had to, pick between the two, it's going to be Pete Alonso, and they're pretty much going back to back. But I feel like Pete Alonso's batting average isn't what we saw last year. He struck out a little bit more. I don't foresee that, continuing to be an issue this year, honestly. My guy just pretty much, had a rough season, a lot of turmoil with that team. They couldn't even keep a pitcher on the team for a full season. So it is what it is. Probably a little bit of frustration in the locker room. Ultimately, I think his average will bounce back. And honestly, in every other category, he didn't disappoint. He had over 100 ribbies. He had 118 to be specific. He had over 40 home runs. He had literally almost the same runs from the previous year. Pete Alonso, honestly, if it wasn't for the what do you call it? The batting average wouldn't even be considered of can he bust because of the because of where you have to pick him. So quite honestly, Pete Alonso, I feel if he returns to the batting average, he's going to return on this draft price. And I 100%, even if he hits 250, I'm pretty happy about it. And I think he's going to hit about 260, 265.
Matt, strong takes on everyone there. Just to recap that top five here at first base, based off of ADP, you got Freddie Freeman. He's coming off the board, 8th pick overall. Matt Olson coming off the board 2nd, pick 14. Bryce Harper coming off as the 3rd first baseman at pick 22. You got Vlad Jr., 4th first baseman, pick 25. Then Pete Alonso, 5th first baseman at pick 26. I don't really have too much to add there. I think first base this year is actually super deep. You don't have to pay up for one of these guys. I'm definitely not doing it in the first round. As good as Freddie Freeman is, and as much as I love him, first round is pretty much, you got to get yourself an outfielder there this year. But let's keep things pushing here. Let's kind of push through these next 5 guys here according to ADP. You have Cody Bellinger as the 6th first baseman off the board, pick 55. Paul Goldschmidt, 7th off the board, pick 65. 10 pick difference there. Nolan Jones, 8th first baseman, also has outfield eligibility, pick 65. Christian Walker, 9th first baseman, pick 81. And then you have Spencer Steer as the 10th first baseman, has a lot of multiple positional eligibility, pick 96. So then you really start to see the fall off there at first baseman. I like Matt Olson as a 2nd round pick going back up there a little bit. But then when it comes to this, next tier is where you could honestly, you could buy back in here in this tier. Cody Bellinger is somebody, let's see where he signs. I'm not really drafting Cody Bellinger right now. I kind of want to see where he signs first. Then, let's see how things play out. If he winds up on a good team, good environment, I could see myself buying him. But then again, ADV probably moves up on him a little bit. Goldschmidt, going to talk about him later. As Matt, teased, I'm going to do it here myself. Goldschmidt's either going to be on my targets or on my avoids. So stay tuned for that. Nolan Jones, I love him. And I know Matt can attest to this as well. I don't find myself drafting Nolan Jones a lot, but I do love him. I do think he's going to have a good season. I think the power is legit. I think the speed's legit. The counting stats are a little bit, weary based on the team, but I think he can hit for a little bit of average too. So honestly, I think this might be one of the last years you're able to get Nolan Jones this late. So we'll see how that goes. Christian Walker, coming off that, Diamondbacks World Series team, going to hit middle of that lineup, going to have a lot of power, RBIs, batting average is a little questionable, but, can hit for a decent batting average. So, I'd like to pick 81 there for him. And Spencer Steer is somebody who's interesting at pick 96. Not really one of my, targets or avoids, but I like the Swiss Army knife eligibility with him there as the 10th first baseman. Matt, real quick before, you jump in here and give your thoughts on this next 5 first basemen according to ADP, let's hit, our friends with a little ad partner here.
Yeah, buddy. All right.
And guys, we're talking about Backblaze. Backblaze makes backing up and accessing your data astonishingly easy. With unlimited cloud backup for Macs, PCs, and businesses for just $99 a year, you can easily protect your business data through a centrally managed admin. Backblaze is easy to deploy across multiple workstations with various deployments options, and you can access your backed up data from anywhere in the world using their web app or their iOS or Android apps. With Backblaze, you can restore by mail with a hard drive with all your data shipped to you by door. Buy a hard drive, restore, send the hard drive back within 30 days, and get a full refund. Backblaze has assisted with over 55 billion files restored for customers. Receive a fully featured, no-risk free trial at backblaze.com/lockedonmlb. Go there, play with it, start protecting yourself from potential bad times. Start today. And guys, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with their local experts. Locked On, with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to their first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And guys, lastly, the one that's most important to Matt and I, we're once again introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on the Subtext platform, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Dive into the offseason with Matt and I as we provide our tiered rankings with over 100 outfielders and starting pitchers. We're also giving our prospect insights, sleepers, breakouts, bust, and personalized draft grades. You guys have the burning questions. We've got the answers. As the season unfolds, rely on us for dynamic content. Get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call-up alerts, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead in your fantasy league by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where the path to your victories begin. Subscribe now and elevate your fantasy baseball experience. And as always, that is so much here for me. Matt, why don't you hop in here, brother, and give your thoughts on those next 5 first basemen I was talking about?
Honestly, man, I don't know how much time we're gonna have, but I'll pretty much do this next 5, and then
Yeah,
we're pretty much gonna wrap up. We'll start moving into our targets.
sounds good.
So the next 5 is pretty much Tristan Casas, gonna be a stud this year. I think, he's gonna build upon last year and, really take it to the next level. I don't really need to talk about him. He's pretty much every fantasy baseball podcast's, darling pick of the position, truthfully. Yandy Diaz, we've talked about him in our bust episode. He's gonna bust. Stay away. Late age breakout. You know, personally, I'm not buying it. The hype was around him and his performance off the waiver wire a couple years ago. Never really lived up to it. Never really stayed healthy. So I'm just keeping away. Yanni Diaz,
We
another
talked
one.
about him at catcher. We don't need
Yeah,
to talk about him.
exactly. And which I wouldn't even draft him at the first base position. So if you're
Yeah,
doing that,
exactly.
you're losing your league at the draft with that one. And then Spencer Torkelson. I like the upside of what the power could bring. Wish he was hitting anywhere else but Detroit. But ultimately, he's a great talent and somebody you should keep an eye on. I'm surprised about the ADP price, but at the same time, hey, if you can catch him as your first, bench player, I wouldn't be mad at that at all. See how your team construction is because the dude could provide some serious power. And with that team kind of getting up with Cole Keith, Riley Green, everybody else, ultimately, I think that they could start seeing some counting stat boosts from just that team building and growing as a whole. But yeah, you know what? I think we should move into our targets. Not to not give you a say, but these guys really aren't as important.
Yeah.
Dude, why don't you give us our, your first target here?
Yeah. Well, I have one target, one avoid, and I think this one goes for both of us. So Matt, I'm gonna let you share in on the love here, and we talk about this guy all the time, but it's Vinny Pasquantino, the Pasquatch. And it's so funny to see a guy that last year was going inside the top 100 now falls to pick 143, the 18th first baseman off the board. And I just want to know what's changed besides an injury that wasn't something that he's recovered from, something that he's already out there in camp, taking swings, and he looks fine. I think that's the only thing that's changed. The skill set is still the same for Vinny Pasquantino. He's going to help you in points leagues. Has great plate discipline, legit power, 30 plus home run power. I truly hope that Royals lineup is better than it was last year. I know me and Matt were really thinking that team was going to be a lot better than it was last year. But I think with, a lot of guys that came up like the Michael Garcias and, guys like that really started to contribute at the end of last year, hopefully can chip in again this year. And Vinny P's counting stats will look a lot better. But, the batting average is legit too. The guy has shown it throughout his minor league career. And the plate discipline just shows you that he can, hit for batting average. I know the 247 last year, doesn't look great, but it's a little bit fluky. He was probably playing hurt for a little bit before, he opted to, get the surgery and all that. But I honestly think this is a guy, if I give you a little prediction of a stat line, about 280 batting average, 28 home runs, 87 RBIs and like 80 runs. I think that's going to be stellar for, a first baseman that you're drafting at pick 143, 18th off the board. Honestly, he's going to be a top 10 first baseman next year and for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, I love Vinny P. Vinny P is the guy, you know, he's probably the guy I target almost like the most to walk away as my starting first baseman. You know, he's going to be incredible. I think you even sell him short on the power. I think the dude could hit 35 home runs without a problem,
Yeah,
honestly. And I think the runs and ribbies are going to be great. He's hitting fourth in that lineup right now, is where he's projected to, and he's going to benefit from at least Bobby Witt and Salvador Perez can just get on base for once. Vinnie Pasquantino could do his thing and really just get his ribbies just out of control, and I'm super excited for him. We spent enough time on him. I want to talk about Ryan Mountcastle. Now, he's a guy I've been targeting, but not as my starting first baseman. I'm just talking about him because we're talking about the position. He didn't, by no means, no stretch, are you to walk away with him in the draft as your starting first baseman. I think that is you've gone too far unless you have, like, I don't know, a ridiculous everywhere else, then you can walk away with Ryan Mountcastle. But I wouldn't even do that. He's more of like my flex option, my first UT option, or my first bench player. Ryan Mountcastle, I think, is somebody that really needs to be, considered, in all honesty, because what he did last year and what he could do this year, I think is gonna be great. He's also like pretty much free 99 to pick 261. Ryan Mountcastle in that short little stint. Plus, he got hurt. 423 at bat, 64 runs, 21 doubles, a triple, 18 bombs, 68 ribs, 3 stolen bases, batted 270. Like, for starters, like, the batting average isn't going to be atrocious, nor do I think it's going to be that high either. I think it's going to be like 255, 260 range, in all honesty, being realistic. I think there is 25 to 30 home run upside. I love the team. I love that he's going to be on that young lineup with everybody else. And Ryan Mountcastle, I think, is going to benefit from pretty much everything that's going on in that team, and could be a serious, serious little, boost. And honestly, may even be more of a sleeper at this position than a target. So just keep an eye out for Mountcastle.
Matt, so well said. Honestly, I have one. I've done one legitimate draft so far, and Mountcastle is somebody that I drafted very late in the draft, and it's just surprising to see that a guy of this caliber is going so late. As Matt mentioned, pick 260 for a guy in this young Orioles lineup that has 25 homer upside with, honestly, is 100 RBIs crazy to say for a guy that's probably going to hit fifth or sixth in this Orioles lineup? No, that's not crazy at all. The runs, you're talking 80 plus runs, the batting average, he's a career 263 guy. I think he could be near or around that. And honestly, Ryan Mountcastle's sneaky fast. I know he stole 3 bags last year, but if he really wanted to run, he could. He's in the 73rd percentile of sprint speed. So the guy's sneaky quick. I'm not saying he's definitely going to steal bases, but you know what? We forget Ryan Mountcastle's going to be 27 years old, right in the prime of his career. And the Orioles are really going to make a run for it this year with all the young guns are up. And I think the sky's the limit for Mountcastle. I actually have Mountcastle ranked as my 14th first baseman off the board. So, he's 27th in ADP. I think that's a super, super disrespectful for a guy that's in the prime of his career on a great team and has shown success in the bigs before.
Yeah, buddy. I don't know if we have another time for a target or anything like that, but I will say
Yeah,
this, since I'll give a little update on something that could be possible. I guess I'll sneak this one. It's a riser. So if Jonathan India stays hurt and doesn't play this season, a guy that we mentioned earlier in the show and a guy that has super question marks, Christian Encarnacion Strand, will get a super boost in the rankings if we could see that India can you know have a little prolonged timeout, because I really want to see what's going to happen if Encarnacion Strand can make his way to the lineup with the India hole. It's going to be wonderful. Then Candelario can have an everyday spot in the field, not going to be shifted around, and he could pretty much just play DH pretty much the whole time. And then when Candelario gets a beat, then you could just put Strand at first. So there's a lot of factors in that, that can open up if this dude is hurt. They just had one bat too many. This may clear up all the ambiguity. And then, you know, by some point, with everybody being so young, somebody will run themselves out of a position by either hitting, too poorly, or India then would not have a everyday playing time and get predominantly benched at this point and get moved. So, this could be a prove it time for him, because I think if he gets the opportunity, he could be absolutely wonderful. Encarnacion Strand can be a serious, serious, serious fantasy asset. Okay. And guys, lastly, at the bottom of the show, we're going to be talking about avoids. We may be able to sneak in 2 or 3. It's going to be a fun conversation, and guys that you seriously need to stay far, far away from. So stay tuned for that.
You
Oop, wrong button. But anyway, guys, get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook of the NBA. Oh man, fat fingered it. Thought we were gonna go back and restart, But yeah. Dom, I don't know. Do you want to give a little insight on what the potential could be of Encarnacion Strand?
Yes, please, real quick. I will keep it short and sweet, and then we'll move on to avoids. I just want to add, I don't even know if you mentioned this. Strand is coming off the board as we're gonna call Strand CES. That's his nickname. That's what everybody calls him. CES is coming off the board, 19th first baseman, pick 148. Honestly, I think in the Reds lineup, somebody either gets hurt or gets traded, but before the season starts, and that's gonna get rid of the odd man out situation that the Reds currently have. But Strand's upside is crazy. 35, 40 home run upside. The runs and RBI should be pretty good in that lineup, and the batting average, another guy that could hit really well. I love getting Vinnie P or Strand, whoever is available, later in drafts as my first baseman. It's really been a strategy that I've been employing, and it's been, working out pretty well for me. But let's move on to avoids. Father Time's undefeated. Father Time's undefeated. Nobody's beat Father Time. And I don't think Paul Goldschmidt's going to beat him either. And, Paul Goldschmidt kind of showed a lot of signs of slowing down last year. I know Matt and I talked about him the other day, and, that we were not really drafting him anywhere. And honestly, if he was going a little bit later, I might consider it. But he's going too high right now. Goldschmidt's coming off the board at pick 65, 7th first baseman off the board. And honestly, I can't do it. I can't justify it. I know he was, MVP 2 years ago, but you know what, man, at age 36 this year, Paul Goldschmidt has showed a lot. Matt broke it down really well. He's talking about how he's not hitting the fastball as well anymore. It just really doesn't look like himself. And, you see the batting average drop off like a cliff from, 317 to 268 last year. It's just, I don't think Paul Goldschmidt's going to be horrible, but I don't think he's going to be worth where he's going in drafts right now. So that's really, really why I'm avoiding him.
Yeah. I mean, Paul Goldschmidt seems to be the standard of, hey, things are going on. Hey, bat speed is down. And I think he's even acknowledged it. I heard, I'm still a fan. I still listen to other podcasts, and it was Chris Towers or Heath, I can't remember, on CBS, talking about how he even went into that hitting program to adjust his bat speed issue. Do you know what the name of the program is? I always forget it. It's a
It might have been Driveline. I'm not sure
and
if
it
it
was
was
Driveline.
Driveline.
It was
It might have
Driveline.
been Driveline.
So, usually players go there to, either fix their bat speed or fix something with their swing. So Goldschmidt is trying to prolong his career. He's a Hall of Fame bat. So, maybe there is a resurgence. Maybe this figures it out. But I think we're starting to see the beginning of the end. So, Goldschmidt himself, I think, honestly needs to be seriously looked at. I don't think he's worth the price at this current moment. I hope it falls, because then I might change my opinion, because then he might be a value. It's just based off of ebbs and flows and the cost. The guy can still put up numbers. There's guys around him that I would pick over him based off of what their productivity could be. It's no shame or not throwing shade on Paul Goldschmidt. He's still going to perform, just not worth the draft price. But anyway, let's move on. I got a little bit more spicier pick of an avoid, and it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I feel like, honestly, we've been waiting for this dude to do it, and he's only done it once. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. just hasn't been able to, do what we all think he could do that he did in 2021. He hasn't repeated it, hasn't even gotten close. He had 48 home runs that year. He had 123 runs. He had 111 ribs, batted 311. And then the 2 years after, nowhere close. 90 runs in comparison, 78 runs in comparison last year. He had 32 home runs a year before, 26 last year, 97 RBIs, then 94. Okay. And then he just got even worse in the walk to strikeouts. in that year that he had the great batting average of 311, he had 86 walks to 110 strikeouts. That's great numbers. Then 2022, 58 to 116. Improved a little bit last year in 67 to 100, which is a lot better. Still managed to hit 264. You know, you're looking at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. going at pick 25, and he hasn't even somebody that's been a pretty much a cog of consistency. He's trending downward, and honestly, too, the Blue Jays lineup isn't my favorite to say, hey, you're going to buy into the team that could also help bolster his stats and be productive and earn that 25th overall pick. And there's a guy going right behind him, and that's Pete Alonso, who has done it time and time again. And even if he does have a subpar batting average, which I don't think he hits anything lower than 250 this year, will be significantly more productive.
Vlad or Alonso?
Alonso.
Okay.
Sorry. Alonso will not hit anything lower than 250, will live up to that draft price because of he's done the 40 plus home runs multiple times. He has done the 100 ribs multiple times. The runs I think are going to be there. So Pete Alonso is a more consistent pick, and on top of that, you look at other guys in those rounds, and it's like, okay, do I pick him or do I pick Luis Robert, or do I go and I take a shot on a Gunnar Henderson or an Ellie De La Cruz in that end of the second, beginning of the third round? Like, these are guys that I'm considering over Vlad that can honestly make or break those picks, and I think that there's better upside with those guys, and honestly, more consistency, more floor with Pete Alonso and Robert, and I'd take that floor, or I'd go for the ceiling play with the other two that I named of Gunnar and Ellie and so forth, because I feel like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. might just bust at the position just based off of that and probably be more like a top 50 player than a top 25 player.
Yeah, I'll there's certain things I agree with, certain things I disagree with here when it comes to Vlad. I'm not targeting him, so he's not somebody I'm going out of my way to draft, but I'm not avoiding him either. I think we forget Vlad's only going to be 25. He's already been around 5 years and he's 24, so he's still super young. And if you look at some of the underlying stuff, a lot of it looks really really good. He still hits the ball super hard. Honestly, he's still in the upper echelon when it comes to walk to strikeout ratio. He's a very disciplined hitter. Honestly, and if you look at all of the projected stuff for his batting average, everything said that he got robbed in batting average. Honestly, I think Vlad, is a lot closer to his career 280 mark than to the 264 he was last year. And the 26 home runs is kind of crazy to me for a guy that hits the ball as hard as he does and as good of a hitter as he is. I feel like he got robbed with that total. Honestly, I think he's well over 30 home runs next year. So not somebody going out of my way to target at pick 25, which I think is a little bit high for Vlad. But if he falls a little bit, you get him maybe in that third round. I could see it happening there because I do think Vlad gets. I think 2021 will be Vlad's career season, but I think there's another season in Vlad where he hits 40 home runs and has a close to 300 batting average and a bunch of RBIs. But with that being said, let's give our, Matt and I will give our kind of final thoughts on the position here as a whole and kind of, re-talk over, our strategies and stuff like that. So for me personally, when it comes to first base this year, I'm either getting a top 5 guy or I'm just waiting, right? So once again, that top 5 is Freddie Freeman, Olsen, Harper, Vlad, or Alonso. And if I'm not getting that at any of those guys, from like 6 to 13 at first base, when I'm talking about ADP, I'm the only one guy in there that I might ever find myself drafting is Nolan Jones, but I haven't really found myself drafting him much. So then you got Torkelson after that. You got, Josh Naylor, who we didn't really talk about in this episode. We'll probably talk about him more in the outfield episode. Vinnie P and Strand at pick, 143 and 148 respectively. Really love those guys. Matt talked about Mountcastle. You have Reese Hoskins, who signed with the Brewers, pick 189. Just guys that I really, really like here. And I like Anthony Rizzo as well at the 31st first baseman, pick 298. Matt, what are your thoughts here as we wrap up?
Honestly, if I'm not walking away with Matt Olson or Harper, I'm literally waiting for Vinny P, or I am going to pull the trigger a tad bit earlier based off my team construction and go after Tristan Casas. Those are the guys I'm walking away with, but that's pretty much it. That's how I've approached it first base this year. But yeah, Dom, let's get out of here because we are running
Yeah, guys, that's all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. But guys, until next time, see you.